Welcome to Today in History, your daily AI podcast. Here, you'll discover what made this day special, from famous events and breakthroughs to the birthdays and passing anniversaries of legendary figures. So, let's check in and travel back through time one day at a time.
Today, we're kind of diving into this global historical tapestry, our sources, two really detailed daily summaries, the English and Urdu Wikipedia pages for October 11th. And our mission is basically to see what happens when you cross-reference these, to find the, surprising figures, the big decisions, the links across centuries that all land on this one date.
It really is astonishing, isn't it, how much history gets packed into a single calendar day. When you lay these two sources side by side, October 11th, it's less a single point and more like this unexpected crossroads. You've got ancient disasters right next to the dawn of the nuclear age and the space race kicking off. So we're going to look for the patterns today. Global conflict, science, social change.
Yeah.
See how it all connects.
Okay, let's start with those big world-shaking events, the ones that, literally shape the foundations. We'll look first at forces maybe beyond our control. The sources for October 11th point to some truly terrifying natural events.
They really do. We can start way back, 1138, a massive earthquake in Aleppo, Syria. The sources flag this as one of the most destructive quakes, ever recorded globally.
Wow, nearly 900 years ago, a major city just devastated.
Exactly. And then fast forward a few centuries, 1634, this time it's water, the Burchardie flood, just catastrophic. A storm surge killing something like 15,000 people across North Friesland, Denmark, Germany.
15,000. That's a staggering number. It really shows how vulnerable people were back then.
It does. And that vulnerability, it contrasts so sharply with what comes next, which is this rise in human ingenuity.
Yeah.
And the transition point, maybe oddly, is Thomas Edison.
Okay, right. So how do we get from a 17th century flood to 19th century inventions? In 1868, Edison gets his first patent.
Yep, for the electric vote recorder, which, sounds almost mundane now, doesn't it?
A little bit bureaucratic, yeah, for the guy who lit up the world later.
But it kind of sets the stage, because the really interesting thing here is how quickly that ingenuity turns into something, much bigger.
Wow.
And potentially threatening.
Right. This is where it gets really fascinating. The jump from a vote recorder to an atomic bomb. It seems huge, but the timeline is incredibly short. So October 11th, 1939, that's just 71 years after Edison's patent, Albert Einstein's famous letter gets presented to President Roosevelt.
That's the one, alerting FDR to nuclear fission, the possibility of atomic weapons, saying the U.S. needed to investigate. That letter basically kick-started the Manhattan Project.
So this date, October 11th, captures that whole trajectory from a simple gadget to the blueprint for, potential global annihilation in just 7 decades.
It's a stark reminder, yeah.
Okay, let's shift focus upwards now towards the sky, because October 11th is also really important for flight and space exploration, a more hopeful story, maybe.
It is. It begins, you could say, symbolically in 1910, Teddy Roosevelt.
The first sitting U.S. president to fly.
In an airplane, right. Just a short flight with Arch Hoxsey.
Exactly. More curiosity then, but still a first.
But the real space history ramps up after World War II.
Right. 1958, NASA launches Pioneer 1, their very first space probe. It didn't quite make it into stable orbit, did it?
No, it failed in that sense.
Yeah.
But it was the beginning, the first step into deep space for NASA.
And then just a decade later, things had moved fast.
Very fast.
Yeah.
1968, Apollo 7 launches. And this one was a success. The first crewed Apollo mission to fly. It proved the hardware, the procedures, everything needed to eventually get to the moon.
And then cementing the day for pioneers, 1984, Catherine D. Sullivan.
Yes. The first American woman to perform a spacewalk. That was during a mission on the Space Shuttle Challenger.
So October 11th. First presidential flight, first NASA probe, first successful crewed Apollo flight, first American female spacewalk. It's like a ladder of accelerating exploration.
A definite pattern there.
Okay, so from the seemingly limitless frontier of space, we need to pull back down to Earth. Because October 11th has also seen centuries of political shifts, social conflicts, real upheaval.
Yeah, it certainly has. If you look at military history, the 17th century gives us a really grim example. 1649, the sacking of Wexford in Ireland by Cromwell's army.
Right, the New Model Army. The sources mention the brutality.
Oh, absolutely. Over 2,000 Irish Confederate soldiers killed and maybe 1,500 civilians. Just a single ruthless event in a colonial war.
And moving forward, 1899 marks another major conflict starting.
The Second Boer War, kicking off in South Africa. A war over resources, empire, It really shaped things for Britain and kind of foreshadowed the scale of 20th century warfare.
And conflict wasn't always physical, was it? There were diplomatic shifts, too.
Definitely. The Cold War context is clear. 1947, our sources note Brazil and Chile cutting diplomatic ties with Russia.
So soon after World War II ended, you can see the new lines being drawn.
Exactly. Global allegiance is shifting very quickly.
Now let's look at some really interesting social contrasts that emerge from the sources for this date. Washington, D.C., 1890. The Daughters of the American Revolution, the DRR, is founded.
Right. An organization focused on heritage, lineage, maybe maintaining a certain tradition.
Okay, but compare that.
Yeah, this is what's fascinating. Just 25 years earlier, same date, different place, 1865, Jamaica, the Morant Bay Rebellion starts. This was hundreds of black men and women marching, protesting, fighting for basic rights against the colonial authorities, often violently suppressed.
So on the same day in history, you have one group celebrating established heritage and another group literally fighting for survival and fundamental rights.
It's a stark contrast, isn't it? It just shows you the different struggles happening simultaneously. History isn't neat.
Do the sources suggest any, direct link? Or just coincidence?
Just the contrast, really.
Yeah.
It reflects how history unfolds. On any given day, people are working to preserve things, and others are fighting desperately to change them.
And that fight for rights, it continued to shape international stuff too, right? Like in 1906?
Yes, that San Francisco school segregation order, specifically targeting Japanese students. It was a local decision based on prejudice, but it blew up into a major diplomatic crisis between the U.S. and Japan.
Shows how local actions can have global ripple effects. Okay, and if we think about larger institutional changes, 1962 is huge for the Catholic Church.
Monumental. The opening of the Second Vatican Council, Vatican II.
The first big council like that in nearly a century.
92 years, yeah. And it wasn't just a meeting. It fundamentally reshaped the Church's relationship with the modern world. Changes to the liturgy, allowing Mass in local languages instead of just Latin. It was about modernization, engagement. A massive shift.
And bringing us much closer to the present, there's a major social and legal turning point in 1991.
Professor Anita Hill's testimony during the Clarence Thomas Supreme Court confirmation hearings.
Televised. Riveting.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about that specific nomination. It fundamentally changed the public conversation and eventually legal understanding around sexual harassment in the workplace. Globally, really.
Okay, let's pivot to the people. Segment 3, Notable Lives. October 11th seems packed with significant births and deaths. It's not just a random list. It feels like this convergence of influence.
It really is. Let's start with sheer brain power. 2 Nobel laureates born on this day. Chemist Friedrich Bergius, born 1884, and the French novelist and poet François Mauriac, born 1885.
And 1884 is interesting because Burgess shares that birth year with someone else very significant.
Eleanor Roosevelt,
Right.
exactly, the 32nd U.S. First Lady, a total force in her own right, born the same year as a Nobel-winning chemist. Incredible.
Wow.
And we also see key political and spiritual leaders born on this day. Jayaprakash Narayan, the highly respected Indian activist and politician, born 1902, and Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk, author, peace activist, profoundly influential, born 1926.
And the spotlight shifts, maybe, towards arts, entertainment. There's a real arc here.
There absolutely is. Some huge global stars share this birthday. We've got the fantastic American novelist Elmore Leonard, born 1925.
It's Shorty, yeah. Great writer.
Legendary English footballer Sir Bobby Charlton, born 1937. And the icon of Indian cinema, Amitabh Bachchan, born 1942. Just enormous figures.
And carrying that into more contemporary times.
Right. American actress Joan Cusack, born 1962. And then shifting genres completely. The rap superstar Cardi B, born 1992.
So you literally see the torch being passed across generations of stardom on this one date.
It's quite something. Now let's briefly look at those who passed away on October 11th, leaving significant legacies, going way back again. 1579, Sokolu Mehmed Pasha, a major Ottoman Grand Vizier, huge figure in their administration. And 1531, Huldrych Zwingli, a key leader of the Swiss Reformation.
And science features on the death list, too.
Yes, James Prescott Joule, the English physicist, died in 1889. His work on energy, heat, it's fundamental to thermodynamics. The unit of energy is named after him, after all.
Right, the Joule.
And then culturally, the 1960s saw several prominent deaths on this day. Comedian Chico Marx in 1961, the influential French poet, playwright, filmmaker Jean Cocteau in 1963.
And the photographer Dorothea Lange in 1965. Her images of the Great Depression are just unforgettable.
Icons, all of them.
And the more recent deaths really connect back to earlier themes, don't they?
They do, powerfully. In 2019, we lost Alexei Leonov.
The first human to walk in space. Takes us right back to that space exploration theme.
Exactly. And then in 2022, the much-loved actress Angela Lansbury passed away. Stage, screen, just a huge career.
Now, this is where comparing the sources becomes really interesting, like you mentioned earlier.
Yes, because while the English Wikipedia source emphasized figures like Leonov and Lansbury, which makes sense given their global profiles,
Yeah.
the Urdu Wikipedia source specifically highlighted the death of Shenal Haque in 2005.
Who was he?
A very noted Pakistani-Canadian linguist, journalist, poet, lexicographer, hugely important in Urdu literary circles. So it shows you, doesn't it, how different cultures or regions prioritize and remember their own key figures in these historical summaries.
That's a great point. Okay, finally, let's just quickly touch on how October 11th is marked today, because there's quite a variety of modern holidays and observances linking global issues with national heritage.
There is. The date holds several significant modern observances, often with themes of identity, rights, awareness. We have the International Day of the Girl Child. That's a UN observance celebrated globally, focuses on empowerment, rights for girls.
Important stuff. And in the U.S., there's National Coming Out Day.
Yes, a very important day for LGBTQ plus visibility, support, and education. Started back in 1988.
And then shifting to heritage again.
Right. The U.S. also marks General Pulaski Memorial Day, honoring Casimir Pulaski, the Polish military leader who was a hero in the American Revolution.
Okay, and one more.
Revolution Day in North Macedonia, commemorating the start of their national liberation struggle during World War II.
So a real mix. Global awareness, personal identity, national history, hashtag tag outro. Wow, what a journey through just one day, October 11th. We went from a devastating ancient earthquake in Syria.
And the sacking of Wexford.
Right, through to Einstein's letter, setting the stage for the atomic age, the launch of Apollo 7.
The births of stars like Amitabh Bachchan and Cardi B.
And that really pivotal Anita Hill testimony, changing workplace conversations.
I think the final takeaway for me comes back to comparing those sources, the English and Urdu summaries. It really highlights which stories tend to get amplified globally. You know, space achievements, major wars, they often dominate.
But the local sources, like the Urdu one mentioning Shenal Haque.
Exactly. They ensure that key cultural figures, or maybe more region-specific social changes, aren't completely lost in the bigger narrative. It shows what different communities prioritize.
So it raises a question for you, the listener, doesn't it?
It does. When you look at this whole jumble of history on October 11th, think about events like that 1906 San Francisco segregation order, or the Morant Bay Rebellion in Jamaica. Which of these maybe less celebrated milestones do you think deserves more attention today? And maybe ask why we tend to remember the breakthroughs in science or the drama of conflict, but perhaps less often focus on the long, hard struggle for basic equality and rights, what gets remembered and what gets pushed aside.
That's a really powerful thought to end on. That tension between celebrating progress, especially scientific leaps, and remembering the often painful cost of achieving social justice and equality. Something definitely worth considering. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
That's all for today's episode of Today in History. Thanks for listening. Join us again tomorrow to uncover more moments that shaped our world. Until then, keep learning, stay curious, and make history in your own way.